youtube.ca/heavyhockey.
Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here from Oilers Live, along with my co-host, DashInThePark. And guest for the first segment tonight is Mr. Brian Sweet. He's the site expert over at Blackout Dallas, part of the Fansided Network. We're happy to have him on. Exciting day for Oilers Live. Our time in the podcast space has never been greeted with Stanley Cup finals. So this would be the first Stanley Cup finals preview that we've been able to have. And we're pretty excited about that, I'd say. This is a pretty big day as far as Oilers Live and Heavy Hockey Network is concerned. But first, before we get on to Stanley Cup Finals preview, we're going to do a little recap with one of our friends of the show, Mr. Brian Sweet. Welcome to the show, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Dash, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fantastic. Our team's in the finals, and, not to rub it in, but I think I'm doing better than Brian is. I don't know.
Well, we do have another team in the finals down here, the Mavericks and the Celtics.
Yep.
Fair enough, right? Yeah, so, Dallas has always got something going on, and that's true, something to cheer about. Who was taking center stage? Like, you got to think the Mavericks, right? The NBA is probably a bit of a bigger...
Yeah, with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, I think they would have had a bigger draw compared to the Stars if they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been something, though, right? Like,
it would have been the first time in American Airlines Center history both teams were in the finals.
Oh man, that'd actually be pretty cool to be in a city where that happened. I am glad in this case that it didn't happen, but we'll talk about that. And
I'm sure the Cowboys owner is very happy too.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So Brian, we're going to talk today and do a little recap of the Oilers and the Dallas Stars, the series that was. I know, probably as a fan and the site expert over at Blackout Dallas, you probably wished for a different result. We've been there as Oilers fans, not in the far too distant past. I thought it would be great though, and I appreciate you doing this. I'm not sure I would have been ready to do it if it had happened the other way. So I do appreciate you coming on and let's chat about the series. Because what I think in Dash, chime in at any time, but one of the things that I think about as the Oilers continue down this stretch, right, is they've been counted out most of the time, right? They were, in fact, there were a lot of people who even had LA to beat Edmonton in the first round. Certainly a lot of people had Vancouver to beat Edmonton. And then the word sort of prior to this Dallas-Edmonton series was, and we talked about it at length here on Oilers Live, was all of the depth that Dallas had comparatively to Edmonton, the goaltending, the coaching experience, etc. In your words, what did you think? Like, what was the biggest surprise coming out of the series for you?
I would say the biggest surprise was our special teams.
Yeah.
0 for 15 on the power play. Our penalty kill was out of sorts. I mean, it was one of the other reporters for the Dallas Stars said it looks like the Stars were better at even strength against the Oilers, but then when you look at special teams, it was a completely different story because Edmonton finally found their power play midway through the series, and that ended up being the difference.
Yeah, and I think that was a big difference. I might go so far as to say the penalty kill was probably the bigger difference of the two, given the fact that the Oilers scored more on the Dallas power play than Dallas scored.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic from an Oilers fan's point of view. Were the Oilers as advertised? I mean, going into the series, did you think this was the team? Was this the team you were expecting? Were they better? Were they worse? How do you kind of look at it?
Well, when we looked at the previous series, we saw, Vancouver, Thatcher Demko was about to get healthy. The Stars are 7 and have a losing record against Thatcher Demko. He has a 7-1-0 record against the Stars recently. So a lot of fans were pulling for the Oilers because, we can beat Skinner, and then, Skinner completely shuts us down in the later half of the series. And I think a lot of fans were just surprised. After, when Game 4, I believe, Dallas was up 2-0, and then you guys came back right at the end of the first period, put 2 in the net, and it's tied going into that second period. That felt like the turning point of the entire series because I think Dallas just looked bamboozled and, was confused from there on out.
Yeah. Dash, thoughts?
Yeah, he's not wrong. That was the turning point in the series for sure. And it was almost like the Oilers, I'm going to try and not be a little cocky and homerish here, but honestly, it felt like the time that they just woke up. Playtime was over. They had no more room for mistakes at that point in time. If that game, I was at that game, we get up early. It's like, oh, here we go. And, plan the parade, and all of a sudden what happens in Game 3. And we have PTSD in Edmonton because, it was in 2017 when a 3-goal lead got blown, and against the Ducks. And it was a 3-goal lead that got blown when we were in Vegas in Game 5 last year. So it's all these kind of, 3-goal leads, the worst goal, or where there's the worst lead in Edmonton, it feels like. And, as this all kind of was happening and unfolding, it was the point in time for sure. Once you guys got up 2-0 in that first period of Game 4, there was no look back. I think like Canadian TV showed some graphics on, like the for and against and what happened from that point on. And it was just absolute dominance other than, what happened in Game 7. I'm not sure that your shot statistician didn't fall asleep for parts of the game. I think he's a little narcoleptic, but that's another story. It was as hard a fought series I thought it would. That could have went 7 easy. I think Stuart Skinner's the only reason that doesn't go back to Dallas.
Yeah.
And I'm terrified if that goes back to Dallas, Brian. Terrified. Not only Pete DeBoer's record, but backs against the wall in Dallas. Yeah, it's maybe the series was closer than what some may say. And speaking back to the depth, Michael, like we talked about that before the series even started. And, it was so polarizing a topic here, Brian, that honestly, we kind of got to a point where it depends what your definition of depth is, because, you got 3 lines that can roll and score and they can all got 20-goal scorers on them. But at the end of the day, when we've got McDavid and Draisaitl on line 1 and line 2, it made us feel like, well, our line 1 and our line 2 is better. If line 4 is a wash, well, it's only your line 3 that's better than ours. And, with the injuries on defense you guys were dealing with, you're basically down to 5 defensemen as it was, and that doesn't help your depth. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it was, to Michael's point, we kind of flipped the script. We've been the underdog going into every series and kind of showed the doubters. So, I guess that's my points on all of that randomly.
What, Brian, I mean, there's you're ganged up on a couple of Oilers homers here. So I get it. And you're kind of in the hot seat. Was there
Michael's way nicer than I am.
uh, true story. Anyone on the Dallas Stars team that disappointed you throughout the series? I mean, somebody like, immediately I go to Vancouver and I think of Pettersson, right? Like, was there somebody, you expected more from in Dallas that you just didn't get enough out of? I mean, there's a couple names in my head, but thoughts?
I hate to do this to the guy who just retired yesterday, but Pavelski, I mean, literally was like an anchor. It was if I think DeBoer should have had a talk with him and probably decided to put Maverick Burke in there earlier, because Joe Pavelski was just holding down he tried putting him on the top line. The two guys beside him couldn't get anything going. And then, they drop him down to the third or the fourth line. And then, it's just like we never saw him.
Yeah.
For the remainder of the series.
What's interesting there is, I mean, Pavelski is obviously the first one that comes to mind, and it's unfortunate given the stage of his career he was in. But we had the same with Corey Perry. Like, here's a guy that we thought, was going to be like the absolute difference maker. And there were nights where he's been absolutely like non-existent in the whole playoffs. In fact, he sat for, a couple of games. And is on the, frankly, I think he's kind of on the brink of sitting again for other games. Like he just hasn't been the difference maker that I thought he'd be. I expected the same from Pavelski. I thought, frankly, he was one of the players I was most scared of for for different reasons other than, you get the guys you get from like Wyatt Johnston and Logan Stankoven. On the other side, was there a player that you were just enthralled with that you thought, geez, if everybody followed his lead?
I would say, I think McDavid stepped up when he needed to. I mean, if McDavid didn't step up, there could have been some offseason talk, if Dallas advanced, is McDavid, the superstar everyone, thinks he is. I mean, the regular season stats were absurd this year from him. I mean, if he doesn't win MVP, I'll be shocked. But
he's not going to. I mean, that's the unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if he does. But
yeah.
But you should be shocked if he doesn't.
But I don't know if Dallas were to win. I don't know what that would have done to McDavid's legacy. That could have, Dallas has got injuries coming into the series. He didn't take advantage of that and propelled the Oilers to the, Stanley Cup Finals. And, Game 6, he stepped up big to get the momentum going for Edmonton with that goal on the power play. I mean, that was just absurd. The fact that he went around Miro Heiskanen, one of the best defensemen in the league, like it was nothing. I mean, I was like, after watching that, I was just like stunned that he walked around everyone on the penalty kill. I mean, if he didn't step up in Game 6, and put the series away, there could have been some chatter around Edmonton about his legacy and what this series loss would have been like. Because
I got to stop you there. I don't know if the chatter would have been around Edmonton like that, Brian. It might have been everywhere else in the country and everywhere else in North America. There ain't no knocking McDavid in this city. I mean it, man. Like there's nothing dents his legacy. He's got 10 more years to win a cup, and sometimes it takes guys a little longer. We're used to seeing guys from other markets say, man, I was stunned when he scored that goal. Michael, stop me if I'm wrong, but we're kind of past stunned. We've seen this as a regular, literally as a regular. Like I know that's maybe his most important goal and his best playoff goal ever. I'm not sure that meets his top 10, Brian, of all time.
He's gonna be a big. No, he's going to be a top 10 player, and he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's just,
all time. I think he'll be a top 5 player, and he might be there already. He's already on lists that include only Bobby Orr, Mario Lemieux, and Wayne Gretzky. He's on lists, and in fact, he did it this year with being a 100 assist guy, and he still won't win the MVP. That's how disrespected the guy is.
I mean, a lot of our fans down here called him McJesus throughout the series because of his absurd passing, his ways to find open shots on net. I mean, he's going to be one of the best hockey players to ever play the game, but it's just this Oilers team is like one of the best shots he's had to win the cup. You got Zach Hyman, you got Draisaitl. I mean, that stuff. If he couldn't win, if he wasn't able to win the cup with this team, there would be some questions.
Nuge, Kane, the youth.
I think that's fair.
Role,
I think that's fair, Dash. I mean, whether he wins the cup or not, I mean, there's still a series to be done. But as far as teams and talent, the Oilers team, at least on the top half, this is one of the best top halves of a team that we've seen in the modern era. I mean, when you consider that, what is it?
2 Conn Smythe winners, 2 Hart Trophy winners.
5 of the top 7
Richard
scorers
trophies
in the playoffs this year are from Edmonton. Yeah.
I mean, it's just the depth Edmonton has, is insane. And I think, there would be some chatter because, I mean, this is one of McDavid's best shots to get the cup. In the past, he's had.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying because it might not get better next year. So I from that perspective, I think you are right for sure. For me, I guess that talk just of like the legacy stops at McDavid for me. Like Draisaitl, maybe Brian, right? Like if he doesn't win it now and he decides to leave Edmonton and he goes on to LA or Boston and they never win again, maybe his legacy. Matthews, Marner, guys like that, McDavid's on another level for me. I don't think that legacy can ever be touched no matter what. He'll be the greatest player to never win a cup if he gets that far and doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will agree with you on the part with Pavelski. Honestly, he was one of the people that terrified me going into this all the way back to San Jose, man. He is an Oiler killer through and through. I can't remember the last time we played Pavelski and he didn't get 2-3 points. It just always happens. So that was a big thing for me as well. And it's interesting, the Perry comparison, because I think Knobloch had brass kahunas to put a guy like Perry on the bench, and maybe DeBoer needed to do that too. I don't know.
Yeah, the thing is with Pavelski is this wasn't the only series he's had. Like in the Vegas series, he was slow. Colorado, he showed up for one game and that was it. And then it's just like, you want to respect the guy for the legacy he's had, but you got to make decisions where it benefits the team. And the fact that Maverick Burke, the AHL MVP, is sitting on your bench and is an instant offensive juggernaut.
Looked good in Game 7 too. He did. He had spark for sure. And I know Michael and I both have our eye on Maverick Bourque for a long time, not just this year, because he was a junior line mate of Xavier Bourgault, one of our first round draft picks. And we always kind of fantasized about, man, how could we pull Bourque out of that team somehow, So fantastic player. I was surprised to not see him in there sooner as well.
Offline, one of the guys we talked about, Dash, was Sam Steele.
Yeah.
And I thought, and of course, there's a nice little story there from Edmonton, the Edmonton angle. But I thought he was a great player. Like, he was noticeable out there. How do you feel, Brian? Because I said this to you offline, but like, I really, this team scares me. Dallas scares me as an Oilers fan because you got Wyatt Johnston, you've got Logan Stankoven, you've got Jason Robertson. Like, you've
Harley
got
on the back end.
Yeah, you've got a hell of a team, and like Ottinger, that might be the worst I've seen him play in the playoffs, and he was pretty damn good, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and
the Oilers have always had his number, though,
right? Like,
Career 905 in the regular season, and he was
Yeah.
just a 900 in that series versus us now. So
How you feeling about this team going forward? And I know we talked off air, but like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, before I get to the future, this year it stung worse than last year's exit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this felt like a team of destiny that could have went in, beat Florida, and finally got the cup for Pavelski and Suter, and they could have retired.
Yeah.
But it just this loss stings because this is probably Dallas's best shot at winning the cup in years. They had everything going for them. They had Tanev at the deadline. They had the 8 scorers on the team with 20+ goals in the regular season. We actually had a 9th guy that was just right there but couldn't get it. And it just stings having to watch this year's Stanley Cup Finals because it feels like Dallas should have been there with but then it goes to the point of, depth doesn't matter if you can't, find the back of the net. That's what another reporter said. The crazy amount of depth doesn't matter if they can't score.
Right.
Yeah.
Timestamp it right now. 5:23 on June 5th, 2024. The Dallas Stars are going to see the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Final again next year. That team's on the up and up, man. You got like 5 or 6 players that can only get better, and they were already really damn good. And, it's I think, what, I'll put it this way. There's a few general managers in the league that I doubt, and one of them's on our team. And there's a few I don't, and Jim Nill is maybe the top of that list. Figure out a way.
Yeah, Jim Nill is unbelievable, and I would not be surprised if he won. It would be either between Florida or Dallas's GM for GM of the year. The fact that they were able to get Tanev at 75% retained and not lose Stankoven or Burke or Bixel.
Or the extra conditional pick. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that they were just, low draft picks is amazing. The fact that he was able to put that together and get that huge piece.
I mean, it's not that he should be nominated or maybe potentially win the GM of the year this year.
Mm-hmm.
If I made a list, he's in the top 3 or 4 every year, Brian.
Oh,
like he's that damn good to the point where I give him credit for what happened in Detroit when he was Holland's assistant.
No, really I mean, let's just go off of, who he brought over from Detroit for, scouting. You get Wyatt Johnson with the first overall pick in 2021, then Stankoven you pick up in the 2nd round. And then I think the biggest surprise, and it might take him a couple of years once he gets to the NHL, is Bixel. If he can develop his offensive game, that's huge. I mean, literally, I think I remember watching that draft, and Nill and the owner were looking at each other and then looking around the other tables like, did we just have a 6'7" defenseman fall into our lap?
Yeah.
I mean, they had maybe the best draft of all time. I'm not kidding. Like, they set their entire franchise up getting Ottinger, Heiskanen, and Robertson in the same year.
Oh, yeah. That was probably the best recent draft they've ever had.
That's the reason you're where you are,
Let's consider also the fact that they did all these pickups and they still have all their first-round picks over the next few years.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, that to me is just phenomenal, right? Like to pick up Tanev and Tanev and get, and keep your first-round picks. I think they wanted 4 first-round picks if he went to Edmonton.
No, I remember when, the Chicago Blackhawks called the Stars to trade up in the draft. And it was like, I remember the story they said, and, the guy puts him on hold for a quick second, goes, okay, who's available? And one of the guys speaks up and goes, Jake Onger, sir, from Boston College. And that's who they pick. And it was kind of surprising because you had Kari Lehtinen, and then, it would take a couple of years and it looked like he was going to be Kari Lehtinen's replacement. Then Khudobin took over. And then Jake Onger said, when I come back up, I'm not going back down. And now he's your franchise goaltender.
Yeah.
And top 5 in the league.
I mean, he's going to be good. Everyone's kind of, disappointed in him. I don't know why down here. we ran into Vegas last year. We had so many injuries. I mean, players were playing with, torn ligaments, bruises, stuff. And I can see why we lost to Vegas in 6. I mean,
well, I hate to say it, the whole league ran into Vegas last year.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like, you can't be upset about that.
No. Vegas was an excellent team last year, and they deserved to win the cup. But I was just saying, last year, we had so many injuries going into that series. It was an uphill battle. This year, we were completely healthy, and we were shocked we couldn't, at least get one more series win in. And so, I mean, Ottinger's going to be good for the next several years. I don't know why a lot of our fans are disappointed in him. It's one of the best goalies in the league. I mean, I can tell you right now, about 31 other teams would want him.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you guys realize 31 other teams would take him in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I mean, disappointment is one thing, blame's another. I mean, there's a fine line, I guess, and maybe they're connected. But, I mean, Ottinger didn't play for the Oilers penalty kill.
Yeah, I know. He didn't do that.
Right. Like, that's the reason that series went the way it did, in my opinion. I think the MVP for that series was the Oilers penalty kill. Again, for the second straight series.
I would say the biggest loser from the Western Conference Finals this year was the Dallas coaching staff for not adjusting. I mean, literally, it's like if the power play's not working, change it up. Do something else. Yeah. I know you want to try to get Pavelski in front of the net for the redirect, but if Edmonton's going to clog up the middle and take away that, you got to think of something else. I mean, it felt like I was watching a 2-minute passing drill.
Yeah.
I just honestly think it's one of those power plays. Like, it's been one of the best in the history of the NHL for 5 years, right? It just keeps wowing itself, right? And breaking its own Guinness records, if you will. I think it's one of those things that I don't care who you are, you can't stop it because there's just too many weapons. It's like, the basketball equivalent of, James Harden. He's either going to pull up or he's going to, it's one of those 3 moves and the other 2 set up the other one. Right. Mm-hmm. So whether it's Nuge or Bouchard or Dry from his office or McDavid, they'll always find a way. Los Angeles Kings ran into the same juggernaut. They were the second best penalty kill in the entire NHL this year. And
no, they didn't have your penalty kill was stellar. I mean, it was like perfection. I mean, Dallas couldn't get anything going. I mean, it was like I said, a 2-minute passing drill, trying to find an open shooting lane, and they couldn't find any.
Yeah. We've got you for another minute, Brian. Appreciate you coming on. Again, we got Brian Sweet.
Yeah, thanks.
He is the site expert of Blackout Dallas. Any last words other than go Panthers that you might want to say, but do appreciate you coming on.
I just, this is not the last you'll see of Texas hockey in the I mean, they're going to be good for years to come. And actually, one of the players that we drafted, I think in the 5th or 6th round this year, his name's Angus. Kind of goes with the Western theme down here.
Yeah.
And no one picked him because he's not a scorer. Well, apparently he scored 35 goals this year.
Nice.
And we got him in the 5th or 6th round, and he could be a contender down the road to make the team.
If that kid's nickname isn't Beef, there's something wrong with your fan base.
we make Tom Cruise jokes all the time with Maverick.
I bet you.
Like when he got called up, I made a joke on social media. I said, "Call sign Maverick is on his way up."
Yeah. Right on. Good having you. Good having you, Brian. We'll get you back hopefully next year. And I think Dash has probably hit it right on the head there. We haven't seen the last of Dallas, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see you guys in the Western Conference Final next year.
I wouldn't be shocked either.
Yeah, and thanks again for joining us. Good luck to you and the rest of the Stars fans going forward. And when we get back, we're going to have David Rodriguez from the FLA Cats Podcast joining us to talk about the upcoming Stanley Cup Finals when we're back. See you then. And the rest of the fantasy hockey hacks right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Mountain, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavy hockey, and make sure you like and subscribe. Looking for a hockey fix? We've got editorials, fantasy hockey, monthly brackets, and more. Go to heavyhockey.com. Hey, it's Oilers Live Tuesdays, a regular 9 p.m. Mountain Time, now streamed live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavy hockey. Make sure you subscribe.
Oilers Live Podcast.
Want hockey podcasts? Tough Call Podcast, 99 Forever Podcast, fantasy hockey hacks, and replays of Oilers Live. Available anywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Heavy Hockey Network or go to heavyhockey.com. That's right. We need your help. We need your subscriptions. Make sure you subscribe at www.youtube.ca/heavy hockey.
Oilers Live Podcast. Oilers Live Podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Oh man, I tell you, it's good to be back. That takes a little bit of gumption to get onto a podcast after your team loses in the Western Conference Final. I can tell you, he's a better man than I am, because I'm not sure I'd be joining a Dallas Stars podcast.
Oh, hell yeah.
But
Not
appreciate having him
professionally,
on.
not in a nice way.
Good to have Brian on. Good sport, and look at the series that was. But now we're moving on. We've got Mr. David Rodriguez. He's runs the FLA Cats Podcast. Right now, he's the enemy, but he's decided to come on and talk a little bit of Stanley Cup hockey from a couple of teams that only see each other a couple times of the year. And shots already fired across the bow. One of the Miami Herald guys calling McDavid overrated, and among other things. I'm sure David's understanding that that's maybe a little bit of trolling along the way. But how you doing, David? Welcome, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dash, for having me. Always a pleasure to talk Florida Panthers hockey, and what a time it is to talk about it. We don't have the luxury of always talking about it in June. Obviously, our franchise has been through a lot of downs, and now the last 4 or 5 years trending in the upward position. So very excited to talk to you guys, and thank you guys for having me again.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm going to say, like, you're that's maybe the very first time I've had a Kachuk jersey on the podcast in the background ever.
I figured it'd be a nice touch.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of giving me a little bit. No, that's good. No, thanks for joining us. Of course, it's exciting to have hockey in June, and the three of us are among the lucky fans that get to watch it and have somebody to cheer for. Now, this is your second go round. I'd love to hear, your thoughts. Does this feel different? Does it feel better? Yeah, I assume last year going in, you were pretty confident. Obviously, it was the Vegas Golden Knights year. I had a really hard time cheering for either team last year, to be honest, because I'm, I dislike that guy Kachuk so much that I wanted to see him lose, but I hate Vegas, and I wanted to see them lose. And somebody said this online the other day. I just hope it's like game one forever. that might have been the way it felt about last series. But the thoughts on this year versus last year?
Yeah, for sure. This year, there's a bit of a difference in expectations going into these playoffs. Last year's barely squeaking in, last day, last seed, going against the President's Trophy with Boston Bruins. No one gave us a chance. Very few here even did. I think the only ones that believed were the ones in that locker room, led by Tkachuk. Obviously, I'll mention him quite a bit tonight, but
yeah, as you should.
So there was definitely that different feeling on, just winning a game or two against Boston would have been okay. That's fine. We were battling a lot of things last year, injuries, illnesses, cap constraints, couldn't really get much going to repeat what we did in the President's Trophy season prior to that. So a lot of different expectations last year. This year has just been where since day one, they've been playing playoff hockey from the beginning, building that structure to begin with, playing the same way every night. And we've seen now game 100 leading up until Saturday, they've played the same exact way since game one. So there's been that kind of build up since November, December, that this team was built to go the distance. So we've seen now 15, 16 games in the playoffs. They've been able to do just that. So the expectations is we're where we belong kind of thing, where we were built to be the best team in the East. We played the best in the East, and we deserve to be here. And that's kind of the echo the fans and the media down here have kind of felt over the last month or so, for sure.
Yeah, I'll let Dash give his 2 cents, but I'll tell you this, David, out of everybody that the Oilers have played getting here to the Stanley Cup Finals, and then they all deserved it. But I do think Florida deserves their shot at the Cup. As I think this year Edmonton deserves their shot. So it's, this is really, in my mind, shaping up to be a great series.
Absolutely. I think the two teams that were the best projected into this season are meeting up. Although Edmonton had a bumpy road at the start, me and my co-host, we kind of figured they were going to weather the storm. They were going to get back to where they needed to be, and they're exactly where they are and deserve to be. And they face great opponents to get here. So, I mean, we're excited. Connor McDavid, like you said, to see him only 2 times a year. Every time he comes, I make sure, I've got to see him that one time we do see him here live. So to see him at least 2 more times, maybe a few more than that here, it's going to be definitely a treat for us and the fans that don't get to see him too often, for sure.
Yeah. Dash?
Yeah, I think a couple points there. If you're going to talk about the comparisons on the 2 runs, I think David nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Last year was this Cinderella thing where, Boston was the best record in the absolute history of the NHL. Nobody had ever had more points or more wins. And I don't know, a lot of people just expected them to roll through the playoffs like they did the regular season. But as we Oiler fans know, and you Panther fans know, that sometimes adversity gives you that fuel you need, or it gives you that, confidence you need to be able to know that you can take on all comers and that you can meet situations that you can overcome more easily. That said, with all due respect, it comes with a different set of pressures, because I think now the expectations are off last year, right? You danced all the way to the final, deservedly so. Showed a cool, calm, collected, never panic type of game. You're down in the first series, you're down against opponents, you're down in games, and it's all right. We'll get back in there. The second part of my statement, randomly jumping around, is the fact that this version of Tkachuk is my favorite version of Tkachuk.
For sure.
And that comes twofold. It's the fact that he's finally playing, I think, the way that we all expected, like that dominant power forward. We didn't see that as a Calgary Flame. In fact, we will fully take credit as the Edmonton Oilers of running him right out of Calgary and chasing him to Florida.
I've read that quite a bit the last week or so.
We messed him up, and Goudreau, and I mean, their goaltending's never been the same. And that franchise has never been the same. It caused them to panic to take Huberdeau. And anyways, I digress. I'm still pissed off that we didn't draft him in the 2016 playoffs when we took Jesse Puljujarvi, to be honest. And that was something I clamored for at the time, was to get a guy like that. Now, he might have ran from Edmonton and went to the States to go play for Florida, pissed us all off instead. And so maybe it was for the better. But I am really looking forward to seeing this series again. Him and Kane can renew acquaintances. I'll be really interested to see how this version of Matthew Tkachuk takes on this version of Evander Kane.
For sure. And I've obviously been thinking about this myself. And a lot of things I've been hearing are just how the Panthers just, they grind you down and then they'll do the extracurricular after the fact. And it's been different in these series is because against Tampa, we did that in the years prior, try to get under their skin, do some extracurricular activity, which led to Tampa getting extra power plays, extra chances, and at the end would burn us. And I felt like this year it was a different mentality where let's keep on grinding them, but keep the extra stuff to a minimum. Don't get extra penalties. We've seen Tkachuk evolve
Much
that
more
this
disciplined.
This year for sure. I mean, his penalty minutes last year were top 2, top 3 in the league. This year they were on a bit of a trend down, and we've seen that in these playoffs. And then the Boston series, everything just went haywire. 125 penalty minutes combined each team. And then in the Rangers series, the Panthers only took 18 minor penalties in 6 games. So the whole Bulldogs and bully ball has kind of trended differently per series. So if I were to make a call, I would say Tkachuk leaves that aside. A personal Evander Kane type of thing. Obviously, that Alberta battle is for sure still in his mind, but I think he knows the greater good for the team. It's to keep that off the ice for sure. Especially we know the Edmonton power play is just as lethal it can be.
Yeah. Now think. Consider that you're not on an Oilers podcast, Oilers live stream. What are you telling fans about this series in Florida right now? Like, what's the word? I mean, the storyline going into the Dallas-Edmonton series was Dallas had more depth, Dallas had better goaltending, Dallas had, this, Dallas had that. Obviously didn't turn out that way.
P.S. We heard that against Vancouver too.
Yeah, we heard it against Vancouver. What's the storyline, coming out of Florida today? And think we're not here, right? Like, what are you telling your fans of the FLA Cats podcast today?
Sure. I would say defense first is what this team has been doing all year. They built a good foundation with the Ekblad and Forsling combination. You've got the Selke winner and Alexander Barkov leading the way. And I even tweeted this, the best player in the world versus in my opinion, the most complete player in the world in Alexander Barkov. And they've kind of instilled that. And then you've got Sam Reinhart. I think he was 4th in the Selke finalists this year as well. So you've got a great combination of defense between Mikula with size. Even that bottom pairing of OEL and Kulikov have been very stout. So I would say defense first, which will transition into offense, has been the Panthers' main strength this entire season. And of course, Bobrovsky has been fantastic. Not as fantastic as he was last year in the 2nd and 3rd round, but he's done enough, and the shot volume has been held to a lower end that Bobrovsky has in some parts gone 10 minutes without even facing shots, 10, 12, 15 minutes, that when the time comes in the 3rd period, he's locked it down in those must-win situations. And the defense has been the catalyst to this team. Yes, we can score in bunches, but like I said, we just built this game from the beginning of the season. That defense will lead the way, transitioning to offense in a slower pace, grind them down, wear them down, and you'll win the puck battles and lead the turnovers and goals. So the one word for me is going to be defense. And obviously everyone will say penalty kill, but defense has been the number one word for sure.
Yeah. And then I guess the other side to that is, I think sometimes maybe more so last year than this year, because there was a bit of an expectation that Florida could make it again this year, right? So you had some expectations this year that you didn't have last year. As Oilers fans, we're fighting against these stereotypes of the Oilers, like that this team is nothing without McDavid. And you take out the best player out of any team, and they're right.
Sure.
They're going to have trouble. What do you think is a stereotype of this Florida Panthers organization that you just think is inaccurate from a standpoint of guys that don't get to watch 82 games of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really say because I think the headlines are always Matthew Tkachuk, the Hart finalist last year, the superhero of the team last year in the playoffs with so many clutch goals. And, we've been seeing these the last few years that in reality, Barkov is the face of this franchise. He is the player that anyone would want. I would take him over Tkachuk. I know your fans will like this. I would take Barkov over Tkachuk any day of the week just based on his overall complete game. So that's just kind of the thing. Barkov has just been an unsung hero for us for a decade. You guys mentioned McDavid being drafted by Edmonton in South Florida. I was actually at the draft. At the draft when he was drafted.
Nice.
And Barkov has been on that same journey, right? 9-10 years of being on the same franchise. Obviously not on the headlines like McDavid, but here in South Florida, he's just been, our stone, our rock, our franchise player for a decade. And to see him lift the cup would down here be a dream come true. So Barkov for sure is the complete player and my X factor in this series, as he'll probably go up against the best player in the world a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good to hear that perspective. Dash?
That's a unique question, Michael. Put that one in your back pocket. I actually really like that one. What's an incorrect stereotype? Because we sit here around Edmonton and we defend that incorrect stereotype here all the time, which is, and I'll tell you right now, and I think everybody would agree, it's that, you guys just rely on McDavid and Draisaitl. And it's BS. It's, in years past, maybe, less and less and less. Not this year. We've gone on 18-game winning streaks, 16-game winning streaks, streaks through the playoffs. And, we ended the season 18-2-1 last year. But you know what? We did that scoring 5 goals a game every game. Our winning streaks this year were done with penalty kill, with special teams. We ground it out when we needed to grind it out. We went barn burner and shot out the lights when we needed to shoot out the lights. And it didn't matter what style anybody threw at us, we matched it. And I'm kind of sick of that stereotype. I think we're far past the fact that we're carried by 2 players. And I think it's time that people put some respect on the rest of the Oilers' names. In doing that, we see a lot of similarities between our teams. In fact, I think you just talked about the draft year and the players and the comparison, and Barkov's your silent leader, your heartbeat, and that's our McDavid for sure. And then you got Tkachuk, who's your passionate leader, who's carries his emotions on his sleeves, and that's our Draisaitl, right? And as much as we've heard Tkachuk's body language critiqued, we've heard Draisaitl's critique too. And I'm okay with that. I wear it on my sleeve too. Michael's the superstar that carries it all on the inside, and I'm the passionate one of our group here. So I think there's parallel comparisons there, and I'm honestly fascinated to see how it all lines up, right? Like you said, Sasha's a Selke winner. I would say Ekblad and Forsling were arguably the best shutdown pairing in the entire NHL this year, and I'm not even sure it was close.
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of criticism on Ekblad, with his play. He's kind of gotten, I call him, he's a 28-year-old in a 34-year-old man's body. That man's played so many games, been in heavy minutes for us, and just see him turn around in these playoffs with Forsling, who for us, again, another unsung hero for us, came out of nowhere to be, like what you said, the best shutdown pairing. They're going to be crucial, and absolutely, if they're not as good as they were in these first 3 series, they're going to have a tough time for sure.
Well, and it's going to be harder on them this series. I'll tell you right now, they haven't seen what they've seen. I really don't, sure. I know Sasha's shut down everybody he's been up against, right? If you look at all the high guns from every single series, not a chance. Mm-hmm. And Forsling and Ekblad shut down Kreider like almost nothing. They haven't seen McDavid and Draisaitl. I believe in that wholly. And I kind of want to lead into a segue to ask you a question. How do you think that Paul Maurice is going to handle those matchups? Knobloch has shown so far that he's got brass balls, and he doesn't care who he's up against as far as tenured coaches or on the ice. We thought there'd be a lot of line matching. There wasn't, honestly. It didn't matter what city. He rolled his lines because I think he believes that, go ahead, guard McDavid, Draisaitl's coming out next. It'll be interesting to see how that goes in the first 2 games in Dallas. Has there been any talk about that? How do you think that Paul Maurice is going to line match?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen these first 3 series whenever we're at home, we try to match up our strengths against their weaknesses. And then obviously on the road, it gets a little bit more difficult. So I would expect early on to see Forsling and Ekblad against McDavid and Draisaitl for sure. And then most likely you'll have that Barkov line to help out. And like I mentioned, Reinhart is just as good offensively as he is defensively. So to me, it's another X factor and on our first offensive line. And you've got Verhaeghe, who's a bona fide, 40 goal scorer. So I would expect that lineup to be out there on game 1 and 2. And then obviously when it goes back to Edmonton, they can, move stuff around to see how it goes. But for sure, you mentioned Maurice, and his tenure here has just been amazing. And he's I would call him like the golden goose of the press right now, just the way he's been able
so
to.
Good to listen to. You're lucky.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So that kind of plays into just that whole mentality that we have down here. Is just we're cool, we're calm, collective, and we trust Forsling and these Ekblad in situations to get it done. And I wouldn't see that change, especially early on, just yet.
Yeah. I was thinking when you're talking about the Ekblad thing, like, yeah, I know he's been given a hard time a little bit at some points, but there's a guy that's playing defense that seemingly everybody that plays with him is all of a sudden an all-star, like Uyghur, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not the guys playing with them. Maybe it's Ekblad.
For sure.
And we've had that in Edmonton, a number of instances, like Ekholm makes Ekholm just makes anybody who plays with him defensively better.
Tanev's like that. Whoever he played with
like
there was jokes that whoever he played with Vancouver, he should have got a cut of their salary because he made a bunch of $5 million defensemen there. Then he did it in Calgary, and then I'd argue he did it again in Dallas. So
for sure.
My hat's off to Ekblad. He's a hell of a player, and this team, and I don't want to pump them up too much, but the Florida Panthers are a pretty solid team. I would say, from my vantage point and the way I look at it is, a lot like what Dash is saying, and just kind of give you the Oilers fan perspective of how we look at this series, is exactly what he said, is you haven't seen the likes of McDavid and Draisaitl yet, and they don't play on the same line.
Right.
right. So they're going to be a little bit of a 1-2 punch. That you just can't expect, and having 5 of the top 7 scorers in the playoffs going into the Stanley Cup Finals is no small thing. But when I think about Florida, the major thing that sort of scares me the most about this series is you guys were there last year, and that hunger, right? Like that, I don't, obviously none of us know how that feels, but I can only imagine that if you've been to the dance and you left wanting more, as we've seen with Pittsburgh, as we've seen in Edmonton, right? With the old Oilers of Oilers past, like, to me, that's the
of Oilers new,
part.
Michael. Honestly, let's, can I use that actually? Can I jump in there? Because I was thinking about this. I'd pull up my paper and show you on my notes here, but I said in my notes that this is going to be a battle of who has truly learned how to lose. Because the Panthers went all the way. Matthew Tkachuk, it's been all over media, sat there, turned around to the bench, said, I told you we'd be back. I told you we'd be back. And they're back. They've been all the way to the dance, Yep. So is Paul Maurice several times. There's hunger there. Paul Maurice swept us 3 years ago.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
Go ahead. And we haven't forgot. And it was the way he shut down Draisaitl and McDavid. Now, different coaching staffs, Tippett, the way they executed, whatever, what have you. I haven't forgot. And the flip side to learning to lose is we know the Panthers are coming. We know you're coming in waves, and we know it's going to be hard as hell to contain them. You know who else was? The Jets in 2021 when they swept us with their 4 lines. The Avs in 2022 when they beat us in 5. And the Knights last year came at everybody in waves better than any team has ever come at people in waves. So have the Oilers learned to lose? Buddy, we're going to find out, I think.
That's just it. I give you guys credit in that Dallas series for sure. I had Dallas winning that for sure. I thought, like you mentioned, the depth of Dallas was going to be a little bit too much, but Edmonton has evolved, like you mentioned, in these playoffs, just from being so dependent on 1 or 2 players to having players like Evan Bouchard. We had Evan Bouchard as a Norris candidate in our preseason podcast because we thought he was just fantastic defenseman that got on the power play last year towards the end of the year and just carry that momentum this year. So, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he had some struggles early on, but 100 and some points last year. This year he's been again, another fantastic piece for him, Evander Kane, like you mentioned. So there's definitely no mentality, especially from my side, that this is going to be a 2-man show. I mean, this is a complete 19-man team every night for the Oilers. So we're expecting a battle here on Saturday night for sure, and going into the rest of the series. But one player we haven't mentioned, Sam Bennett, he's hot right now. He's playing really well. His hand is fully healthy. He has 3 goals in his last 3 games against Igor Shesterkin. So I know he's got that big beard and he's ready to show it off in Edmonton in about a week or so. So he'll be ready.
Out of that penalty box.
He's scaled it back a bit, like I mentioned a little bit before. They've scaled back that kind of extra hit or extra little dirty shot to get him in the box. So I'd be very surprised if they get into that game, especially early on. So watch out.
But how many chin-ups can Sam Bennett do?
0, I think is what they said.
So yeah, 0. Yeah, 0. That's right. That's right.
All right, David, we got you for a couple more minutes. Any sort of last thoughts in terms of this series and things you're kind of looking for that, and how do you see kind of the first couple of games going in Florida?
Yeah, for sure. I think the atmosphere is going to be electric. Obviously, in that New York series, we had a lot of New York fans. We got half the state is covered with New York fans. So to have some of the stadium, filled 30-40% with New York Rangers was a bit discouraging. But I know Saturday night is going to be electric. I know I was listening to a podcast that the Edmonton Arena is electric can be in those Game 6 atmosphere. So I hope the Panthers can match that in Games 1 and 2, and the fans can bring out the best of South Florida. We've been waiting for this for a year, and our second trip in about 25, 26 years. So we're very excited and eager to see, like I said, the best player in the world in the most, important games of his career and a lot of our players' career. So very excited. And I won't say who's going to win. I just hope it's a great and the best team wins. Obviously I'm a big supporter of Edmonton, and for it to be a matchup like this is the best you could ask for from an NHL South Florida fan for sure.
Yeah. Dash, any last words for David?
Nah, just pretty damn cool that the northernmost team in the entire NHL is taking off against the southernmost team in the entire United States, and whatever it is, 3,800 kilometers, I think I read somewhere. It's just cool. I think it's cool for the NHL. I don't have any hate for the Panthers. I've kind of enjoyed watching them grow over these last few years. I've made predictions. Maybe I won't say them here because you aren't either. But, Oilers in 6. I just think that's the way it's going to go, and it's because I have tickets to Game 6, so that's just the way I want it to go. But, pleasure talking to you. I absolutely enjoyed this a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Very nice for you guys.
Yeah. David, I'll say before you go, and for those of you that don't know, follow David Rodriguez on Twitter or search for FLA Cats Podcast. It is great to hear a guy. These two teams are so far away from each other, but clearly, you've displayed, your hockey, the Oilers. It's a rarity to hear somebody from the Eastern Conference that can actually talk with some level of respect for a Western Conference team, and so it's good to hear and good to have you on today, and hopefully we get you back. And if during the series maybe we can get you back and trade a few chirps here and there.
Yeah, sounds good. When the Panthers have a 2-0 lead going back to Edmonton.
It started already. Here we go.
I had to throw one at the end.
No, all good. All right, when we get back, we're going to have senior writer for the Heavy Hockey Network, Mr. Ryan Lotsberg. This was David Rodriguez for the FLA Cats Podcast. We'll be back shortly. And the rest of the fantasy hockey hacks right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Mountain, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavyhockey, and make sure you like and subscribe. Looking for a hockey fix? We've got editorials, fantasy hockey, monthly brackets, and more. Go to heavyhockey.com. Hey, it's Oilers Live Tuesdays, a regular 9 p.m. Mountain Time, now streamed live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavyhockey. Make sure you subscribe.
Oilers Live
Want hockey podcasts? Tough Call Podcast, 99 Forever Podcast, fantasy hockey hacks, and replays of Oilers Live. Available anywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Heavy Hockey Network or go to heavyhockey.com. That's right. We need your help. We need your subscriptions. Make sure you subscribe at www.youtube.ca/heavyhockey.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Oh, yeah, we're back. And it's the last half hour of our first ever Oilers Live Stanley Cup Finals preview episode. We've got Mr. Ryan Lotsberg on the show, and I think if Dash is ready, we're going to do a little bit of tell me I'm wrong. Did you prepare that? Well, we'll see.
I prepared a little bit.
Prepared a little. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you. You know what? I want to say this now that David's here because I don't want to blow too much smoke up his ass.
Now that he's gone,
but it was good to hear a Florida guy with the level of knowledge about hockey, right, that he had. Like clearly, confident, clearly watches the game. He's got a lot of followers on Twitter, over 10,000. So, guy knows what he's talking about. But I always find it refreshing when guys don't come in and do the same rhetoric that we hear about Edmonton over and over and over again. Like it just that drives me nuts. The Greg Coates of this world, or whatever his name is, Coates, or from the Miami Herald. Yeah, irrelevant. Exactly. All right. Well, appreciate you coming back on, Ryan. You're like a mainstay on the Oilers Live. Dash is co-host now, and you're associate co-host, part-time associate co-host. I don't know, whatever you are, but maybe over time, like Dash, you can just tell everybody you're co-host, and then one day I'll just agree to it.
just make my own title and just speak it into existence.
I feel like that's how it happens around here. I have the illusion of control. That's it. I do have the mute button. I got the mute button. There's that. So that's not bad.
Bearsy made the mistake of giving me the keys to the car the one day, and I tell you, I just drove that son bitch around until I owned it. I think he forgot he gave it to me and lent it to me, and I just started showing up until I named myself the associate host. And now here I am,
the associate host in the office there, just showing up to the job he didn't have every day.
Hey, right? Just something to be said about setting a goal and putting it out there in the universe. So, you know what, Lotsy, I won't let Heber fool you. You don't have a chance of becoming my associate co-host, so I'll just, shut you down right there.
Shut it down.
I think you've got about 90 episodes before you catch me to be able to take that over. And the truth is, we just keep inviting you back because I like to debate with you and win.
Well, there we go.
Let's talk about the Dallas Stars depth again. Actually, let's not, because I was right.
I want to point out.
We had to mean that it was right.
We had to endure a Kachuk jersey behind us for a half hour just now.
That's a first for sure.
But I'm looking at Lotsy, and the guy is decked out. And look, he's got side by side Stanley Cup 2024 jerseys.
Oh, what
plus
those?
2024 Stanley Cup final shirt. And the hat.
Did the Oilers make the final? I hadn't heard.
Wow. Like, awesome. I love it. This I can get behind right here. Like, this is awesome. You know what? You know what's great is I made this fancy little overlay. This is for those of you not listening in. I made this little fancy overlay, but it doesn't really look great with the three. It cuts off the top of my head. Kind of, maybe I need to sit way back. There we go. Sit way back. And then that's good.
You didn't want to throw that on there for the last guys just to, gloat a little, right?
That's right.
Dallas guy doesn't need that in his face the entire time.
Oh, man. I tell you, that's good. All right, Dash. I'm not just giving you the keys. I'm to the car. I'm giving you the keys to the castle. You're up. It's your show. The last half hour is all. It's the Mike Dashney half hour, 30 minutes. Dash in the Park, 30 minutes special. In fact, it's only 24 minutes. But hey.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll probably blow my whole load in 20 minutes here anyway.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
That's all right. Hey, read that last one from some stranger. Dash is the underboss. You goddamn right, some stranger. All right. Look, I've been off this week. I've been doing some solo parenting, and it's really hard to do. So I decided to also take work off so that I don't die. And what that forced me to do was listen to a lot of bullshit Eastern media today. I had Sportsnet on, and Michael, you and I have had this conversation so many times about how you listen to the NHL Network and Sirius Satellite, and you gave me a taste of it when I came to visit you. Holy hell! I wanted to punch my TV so many times today to sit there and listen to the effing narrative that these jackasses have. I was so fired up. Literally 20 minutes of a conversation about, well, is this good that Connor McDavid wins it this year? Will he just win his cup and then come back, be one and done and finally be satisfied? Or if he doesn't win, will he, keep telling Edmonton, I want to win one for you? They just think that this is a foregone conclusion, that he's going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf someday. It's absolutely sickening. And then I sat and listened to him say, well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are built the exact same way. It's so discouraging that the Leafs can't get past the first round when they're built the exact same way around two superstars. You know what, Toronto? Wake the F up. Your two superstars are not our two superstars. They never will be. They never have been. It's ridiculous. You're not built the same way because you don't have Draisaitl and McDavid. And I texted that in, and I got called an idiot.
Did you really? You texted that in, and I called.
Tell me I'm an idiot. All right, because Toronto thinks I'm an idiot. Here we go. Okay,
I love it.
I'm gonna calm down a second here. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
That's going on as a short later. That's going on as a YouTube.
Man, it's ridiculous. Honest to Christ. Okay. Look at this. Okay, so here I kind of talked about this a little bit in the last segment, and I think that this Stanley Cup was a little bit of a battle of who's learned to lose. The Panthers have lost in the finals. They're going to come back. We got swept in 2021. We got they came at us in waves. We're up against the Avs in 2022. We lost in 5. They came at us in waves. The Knights came at everybody in waves last year. We lost to them in 6 in 2023. The Panthers are going to come at us in waves. That's what we've been hearing. It's 2024. I think the Oilers have learned how to lose. Lotsy, tell me I'm an idiot.
I mean, I enjoy doing that. Both teams have their scars here, right? Like David was talking about, they had to get over Tampa Bay before they could get to where they were last year. And they had a tough go in the Stanley Cup final last year. Not only was Vegas a really good team, but they were beat up. Aaron Ekblad was far from 100% with multiple injuries. Kachuk had that broken sternum. I can't remember what game that was, but it was early in the series too. Had to get his brother to help him get dressed in the morning. That was a tough one. And I know there were others, right? And every team's got their bumps and bruises at this time of year. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But both teams are pretty healthy right now, generally speaking. No serious injuries to anybody. So that's a rarity to have both teams with no injuries. But both teams have had their disappointments. Both teams have taken their lumps. So may the best team win.
Well, they've learned to lose. Maybe I'm not an idiot, or am I, Michael?
Yeah. No. I think the Oilers have it this year. I've been a homer in years past and thought they had it. This year feels a little bit different, and it's, to Lotsberg's point, last year, everybody was injured. It was the same for Edmonton, right? Draisaitl's playing on one leg, right? This year, we're all going in, minus the exception of Evander Kane. Everybody's going in healthy. And I will tell you that any day of the week, I'll take the Oilers healthy over any other healthy team. And this is, it would surprise me to no end if this team didn't look like at everything that's gone on to get them here today and decide they're just gonna take charge and take it home. I think the Oilers are done. They're tired of losing, and this is the year they prove it.
Yeah, hell of a segue too, almost like we planned it. Because I think that, look, the Oilers came up against LA in the first round. They came up against Vancouver in the second round. They came up against Dallas in the third round. And all we heard about was how deep all these other teams were. You just said it, Michael. You'd take a healthy Oilers over any other team. Perfect segue. LA, maybe they weren't deeper, but we sure heard that Vancouver was, and their goaltending was better. And we sure heard that Dallas was, and Lotsy even argued it here last week. And we heard that their goaltender was better. And we're hearing it again this time, that the Panthers are better and that they're deeper. I think the Oilers are the deepest team in the NHL playoffs. Tell me I'm an idiot.
I'll go first and let Lotsy respond to me this time. Yeah, I mean, I find it hard not to believe that. I keep talking about 5 of the top 7 scorers. Like, how much deeper do you really need to go? Right? Like, that's a quarter of your team. It's like, from then on, it's like the rest of the team, they could be, they could be middling, and they are. And who the hell cares? They're middling the same as everyone else. But the top half of the team is so much more dominant that, you don't realize the depth because the other guys are just that much better than everybody else. So I still, we'll get into this. I don't think Skinner's the best goalie in the playoffs, but he's good enough given the way that the defense have been playing, the way that the penalty kill's been playing. So, you've got this sort of, I just think like this team is deeper than people give them credit for because the top half is just that much better than everybody else. So yeah, no, I agree with you. Deepest team going in, and they proved it the last 64 games of the season. People seem to forget that.
In the last
right?
3 rounds of the postseason.
Yeah, in the last 3 rounds of the playoffs. Yeah.
Lotsy, tell me I'm an idiot.
Well, this is the same conversation we just had in the Dallas series, right? Right. Teams are built 2 different ways. You got the Edmonton model where we're in a little triangle here, really good up top, it tapers off at the bottom. Florida, more like the pyramid or more like a column, right? Like really good top 2 lines in Florida, but they are not Edmonton's top 2 lines. No one's arguing that. But like their third line with Lundell and Luostarinen and Tarasenko is unbelievable. That is better than anything we can put out in a third line. And fourth line's, probably a wash, but I would probably give the slight edge to Florida offensively. And there's different contributions you can have to a hockey team. Our fourth line has been a big part of an incredible penalty kill in these playoffs. And we did get some contributions from them in the last series, but that's not what we see over a larger sample size. And we want to talk about defense too. I like Florida's second pairing over our second pairing, and I like their third pairing over our third pairing. Top 2 pairs, pretty even. Florida, like Ekblad and Forsling, I think are lower event players, whereas Ekholm and Bouchard are higher event players. You look at their goals for and against per 60. I think Blue Bullet Brad had it on Twitter a couple days ago. Like Ekholm and Bouchard are better than, like, they have more of each of those categories than what Ekblad and Forsling have. But as far as overall depth goes, I think Florida is the deeper team, but that doesn't mean better.
You said the word incredible several times there. I would say what's incredible was your orchestra hands as you tried to compare a triangle versus a column. That all said, you just called me an idiot, so that's my revenge. No, well put, Lotsy. Honestly, I think what we decided in our truce was that it comes down to your definition of depth, right? just because we can load up our 2 top lines and that means our top 2 lines are better, maybe our 4th line's a wash, their 3rd line's way better. Does that make us deeper? I don't know. They have more players that can score, but we got 2 lines that can score way more. So yeah, let's not go down that path again. We were already.
I will point out, Dash. I will point out that the Stars outscored the Oilers 12-11 at even strength, or at 5-on-5. I mean, and then they added 2 6-on-5 goals as well.
Finished it in 6 games, I'll add, and I was right because we're in the Stanley Cup Finals. Okay, let's go on. I said it again last segment. I think I'm intrigued. I think a lot of us will be. They possess the Selke winner. They possess the best shutdown defensive pairing in the entire league. We've saw Chris Knobloch go up against every single team and basically roll his lines and not to worry too much about matching. You may call me an idiot, but I think Knobloch should do the same thing and just roll his lines and face whoever he's up there and let the rest of the depth of our team win it out. Ryan, tell me I'm an idiot.
I can't. I agree with you on that one. McDavid and Draisaitl are good enough to beat anybody in the league. So give us Barkov, right? I think McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, and Hyman is they're scoring at a rate that is unbelievable. It's better than any line we've seen in the playoffs in quite some time. And then add Ekholm and Bouchard in there. Bush is doing what he's doing. Ekholm chipping in too. It's a dominant 5-man unit. So give us Barkov, give us Ekblad and Forsling. Let's see how it goes. That's going to be really fun to watch. And Draisaitl, sure, you want to put him up against that second line with Tkachuk. Great. I think Dry will hold his own there. It's going to come down to how that Lundell line and how Henrique's line or McLeod's line, depending on how the lines are juggled in the series. But that third line needs to hold its own.
Yeah. Draisaitl beat him on one leg last time, and I haven't forgotten that. And Kane made him pee his pants. So let's see those 2 guys on the second line and go up against him. If not, he's going to get McDavid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, and something that we're not talking about is you've got Holloway, Draisaitl, and Kane. If you're going toe-to-toe with Tkachuk and Bennett, here's the thing is Draisaitl plays his best hockey when you're pissing him off. Mm-hmm. Right? It's almost as if Tkachuk Bennett line, that's a hell of a line. It is a hell of a line, and they'll get under a lot of people's skin. But it's kind of like the guy that tastes his own blood after getting hit. Draisaitl tastes a little bit of that blood, and he's like, screw you. I'm going to turn it up. And Kane's actually the same way. When did Kane actually start performing is after he got into a fisticuff, right?
It was this.
Well,
it was this.
Yeah. These guys, they live off of that Draisaitl and Kane. They love it. And so going toe to toe with Tkachuk and Bennett, I think is just going to make them that much better. And obviously you'd put McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, and Hyman against any line in the league. I think, what maybe we're not talking about enough is, our top 4D versus their whatever line 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? People aren't giving our top 4D enough credit, I don't think. Right. And if you honestly, we've talked about, and everybody talks about ad nauseum, which is Skinner, then if he's performing the way he is, and he's not that great of a goalie, as some people would like to say, then it's got to be the defense, right? What is it? It's either Skinner or it's the defense that are doing well. The defense for Edmonton is holding their own. And you've got a bunch of lines in Florida that I think, are going to be hard pressed to score against our top 2 defensive pair. And we still haven't seen what Broberg can really do. Right. So toe to toe, I'm good.
Let's go into the lineup a little bit. Have they made any announcements on whether Broberg is starting game 1 before I do this?
I haven't heard anything formal. Like, there were a bunch of new line combos on the ice today. They're at Oilers practice anyway, but I don't think anything's set in stone yet. Kane didn't skate, so that's a factor.
Yeah, I saw that as well, Lotsy. And I think if I'm not mistaken, they had the third pairing defenseman split off, if I'm not mistaken, which Desharnais was a part of, which is my
they had a couple pairings.
Florida's a physical team. We've heard about it. We've heard Florida's going to be more physical than any team we've seen in the playoffs. We've heard they may take penalties. The Panthers come at you in waves. Adam Fox said that, as soon as they got the puck in their end, he had to haul ass and turn around and go defend in your own end and try to break up a cycle for the rest of his shift. Vinny Desharnais is one of the best Edmonton Oilers defensemen at breaking up the cycle. I think he's also better than Broberg on the penalty kill, and his team may take penalties. Call me an idiot, but I think the Oilers should be starting Vinny in game 1 instead of Broberg. Lotsy?
I tend to agree with that. I just for the physicality bit, I figured that Desharnais' skill set was a better fit against the Panthers than Broberg's. The only counter argument I could think of is that Broberg's mobility and his skating ability is going to allow him to retrieve pucks and get him out of the way faster, so he won't have to take as many hits. But Desharnais, his puck play has been much improved this season, so I don't see that as big of a worry.
Yeah.
Michael, I think Vinny should be in instead of Broberg.
Yeah.
You're an idiot.
Yeah, no. I agree with you. Look, Desharnais has had more playoff experience, right? At least give him the first game, right? And check it out. I mean, you did what you did in the Dallas Stars game because you had to do what Knoblauch had to do something, right? Like he's shaking it up. Yeah. But go back to Desharnais. He was a good teammate. You saw him out there at the end of Game 6 doing the the hug with Skinner. I just think he's on a short leash, right? Like, and Knoblauch is not afraid to make decisions. But if I'm going into a series where, like, they played at Florida twice this year, both before the start of this year, right? Like they were both before end of December, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you haven't seen much of Florida, and you haven't seen this version of Florida. Put the guy in with more experience, put him on a short leash, and decide then what you're going to do. And it doesn't mean Desharnais could still play a good game and still be out in game 2 once the Oilers know what Florida's bringing to the table. I wouldn't be surprised if the two of them are changed up, even if you had a good game. Knoblauch might get a feeling for one guy or the other, right? Based on different factors.
Well, Desharnais did make a pretty big mistake in game 3. This play, he's getting the puck as he's getting over his own blue line. Couldn't chip it by Ben. Puck goes deep. And then he helps on Sam Carrick's man as it came to him in front. He didn't need to, but his man, Wyatt Johnston, had a wide open net. So that was just a misplay, a misread by Desharnais, and he's out the next game. Hasn't seen the ice again since. So you scratch a player. The thing of it is, I've got a teaching background. I've done a little coaching as well. You got to give somebody an opportunity to show that they've learned from their mistakes. So I do think Finney will get in. And if he doesn't start, I think it won't be long until he's in again.
Yeah.
My mom gave me the same type of... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. My only argument to that, if they play Broberg is, and you'll hear this time and time again, the Stanley Cup Finals is not a time to learn anything new, right? Like you either learned it or you didn't. And there's one of the challenges with what we're talking about right now of who to play is we're not on the ice with them during practice, right? Like so much will happen between now and game day on Saturday in terms of, Knoblauch or the coaching, the rest of the coaching staff saying this guy wants to play, like this guy's showing me in practice that he wants to be in the lineup. And so we'll see, that's the factor that we just won't be able to see.
Yeah, comments to both of those things. Lotsy, yeah, I totally agree that trust has to be earned, and you have to show an opportunity to earn that trust if you're ever gonna earn it. I learned that a long time ago, and my mom used to ground me for 2 weeks, and then she'd get sick of me after like 4 days and kick me out of the house and say, "Okay, you got to go earn your trust because I won't ground you anymore." Anyway, and then yeah, I think Bearsy, yeah, like good points there too. I think, and honestly, tying this back to the comments, Rye Guy in, and I want to talk about all 4 of his comments here. Vinny is meaner, and I think we're going to need a lot more of that in this series. Totally agree. This thing's come down to fisticuffs. Then I want Vinny out there. He agrees Vinny will probably play one, and then he said, "I read some Kane isn't going to skate until Friday." Knobloch said today's Kane will not skate till Friday, but he does expect him to play Saturday. Going back to the comments, some stranger, Oilers have trouble getting the puck out of their own zone. Broberg is a big help on that front, and maybe that's where this all ties, right? Vinny's great at breaking up the cycle, but we won't have to break up the cycle if the puck never gets there in the first place, and Broberg's better skilled and more skilled in that situation. So great points all around there. I had one more, but you know what? Maybe I'll save it because it was a bit of a doozy, and we could probably use it in the off season anyways, because it's about Bouchard's contract coming up, and I'm not sure we have enough time to talk about that. So 3 minutes left. That's call me an idiot for this week, and it was fun. Thanks, guys. So you want to do some last comments, Michael, or what do you want to do? Go around the horn?
Yeah, I mean, let's chat about it. I mean, I think we're gonna be good to go next Wednesday, right? If I'm not mistaken.
We are. Yep.
Yeah, there's no games on Wednesday at all, so we should be good.
So we'll be good to go. So you're going to see us back here next Wednesday, 5 p.m. Mountain. We could. I wouldn't mind actually getting David back if he's willing to talk about the series as it lines up. Just quickly, guys. I mean, what do you think about the first 2 games? Like, how important is it that the Oilers split this? If they lose both, you think it's the Oilers are in huge trouble, or do you think they can come into Edmonton and win 2 at home?
You're never in trouble until you lose a game at home, right?
Yeah.
Took it off the tip of my tongue. You're never in trouble until you lose a game at home. That said, it depends if we come home 0-2, how we lost those 2 games.
Oh, 100%. Like, you don't want to be down 0-2. And, like, I think it was Ekholm who went down 0-2 with Nashville against Pittsburgh the year they went, and they couldn't climb out of the hole. He said there were some focus issues because the media was just another level. But you're never in trouble until you lose a game at home. So, yeah, you lose the first 2 in Florida. Great. Hold serve at home.
Yeah. Man, I can't wait till Saturday. This is exciting to be here. Heavy Hockey. Ryan, you're writing a lot of great stuff. If you haven't checked that out, go to heavyhockey.com. The rest of the guys. Dash, good to be here.
Spectre's favorite writer you are.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. There's something. There must be a trophy for that somewhere. Dash, good to be on the show with you while we celebrate our first Stanley Cup Finals as a Heavy Hockey Network, as the Oilerslive podcast. Guys, we're already off the air on Edmonton Sports Talk and iHeart and TuneIn and all those guys, but we're still here, YouTube and Twitter. Thank you to all the listeners. We had lots of you tonight. Please like, subscribe. Get us over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube if you can. If you're not there right now, head over to youtube.ca/heavyhockey. Hit the subscribe button for us. Do us a favor. 1,000's a big mark for us, and it's just grow from there. Heavyhockey.com is getting unreal numbers. As it does every playoffs, but as we got closer to the Stanley Cup, it's like a hockey stick. It just keeps going up and up. And thanks, Ryan, for putting out some great content there. So just continue to tune in. We might do some surprise episodes. They don't all have to be on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. So we'll see what happens. We'll maybe get together for that.
Maybe a
thanks,
little watch
guys,
along,
as always. Yeah. And hey, I couldn't imagine being doing this with anybody else. So thank you to you guys for making this happen. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week, if not sooner. It's Michael, Dash, Ryan Lotsberg for the Heavy Hockey Network. Have a great night.
Oilers Live